We have been making zero RB videos for a couple of years, but this year our tunes have changed. We still want to cover how to execute a zero RB, but this old definition of we hate running backs, we're not going to draft running backs anymore, is probably a suboptimal draft strategy in the year 2025. So we'll go through kind of what the old running back definition of the dead zone and all the stuff that we talked about the zero RB draft strategy was before, and kind of how it's changed in the current landscape of fantasy football drafts.
Yeah, for those of you that may be unfamiliar with what the old definition was, the old definition of a zero running back draft strategy was that you would fade the running back position till about round 7 or 8 and avoid the running back dead zone entirely. During those first 7 or 8 rounds, you're filling out your quarterback, your wide receiver, your tight end positions. Realistically, you're just filling out all of your other starting lineup spots. And the old definition was actually you wanted to be drafting a wide receiver or 2 that would go onto your bench as well. The whole definition of a zero running back draft strategy was you were filling out every single lineup spot and every single lineup depth position so that come season time, the only actual position you have to focus on from a waiver wire perspective would be at that running back position. However, as we'll point out in a second, given the changes in the overall fantasy market in terms of ADP, maybe this traditional definition isn't quite suitable going forward.
Yeah, zero RB was meant to be like a reactionary strategy that if your league mates are just going to let all these wide receivers, quarterbacks, and tight ends fall to you because they're going to chase up the board suboptimal projections at the running back position, you're going to zig when everybody else zags. You're going to go into your draft ready to draft the best players available and whip out zero RB, break glass in case of emergency, and you're using it because every time you get on the clock, you're like, well, I can't pass on Devontae Adams for, Kenneth Walker or whatever. Like you couldn't take the running back projection who didn't project as well as the wide receiver projection. And same goes for quarterback and tight end. And like you said, you would win those other positions. You would win the wide receiver spots. You'd win the flex spots. You'd win the quarterback spot. You'd win the tight end spot, only having to focus on catching up at running back, playing into the chaos that running backs get injured, running backs bust. You're going to pick up the backups to your league mate starters, and so on and so forth.
The traditional definition really thrived because the market as a whole was kind of thinking in the sense of, I have to catch up at running back. I have to be strong at running back. The most scarce position is running back. Well, if the market temperament isn't exactly that, but rather in terms of running back selectivity, like we'll talk about in a second, that'll change the dynamic.
Yeah, it's no longer an effective strategy if people are like, yeah, I'm going to run if 5 people want to run a zero RB in your league. Like it's just not going to work the same way that it used to. The new definition of zero RB, I would say how we're adjusting to kind of the post dead zone era of running backs. The last 2 to 3 years, the running back position has changed to the point that you're actually willing to be selective still, but probably take a plunge on a running back, even in that rounds 4 to 7 dead zone range. You're still generally going to favor the better wide receiver, quarterback, and tight end projections if you're running a zero RB, but you're not necessarily going to sacrifice the position entirely and not draft a single one until round 7, till round 8. Before, this used to be a huge mistake. I wouldn't have said 2 years ago that you should draft, let's say, 2 wide receivers, a quarterback, and a tight end the first 4 rounds, and then venture into the dead zone in round 5 to get a running back to start your lineup with, because normally you'd be walking right into the area of the dead zone where running back hit rates are terrible. But now, because running back 21 is off the board in the 6th round instead of running back 31, it's a lot better of a projection.
Well, that's the big difference. As we discussed, if you guys watched last week's video where we talked about the running back dead zone and how it's changed, the running back dead zone is a dead zone no more. If we look about it, think back in 2020, like you said, running back 21 was off the board when wide receiver 12 was going off the board. So just think about it from a fundamental standpoint. If you are taking the running back 21 off the board versus the wide receiver 12 off the board, you are taking a low-end running back 2 over a wide receiver 1. Nowadays, running back 21, it's not off the board till the 6th round. It's not off the board till we're talking about wide receivers in the late 20s, early 30s. So just strictly from an opportunity cost standpoint, if you think about it in relation to what wide receiver versus what running back is coming off the board, it'll help you understand whether zero running back is actually viable in your league.
Yeah, and to give you an idea in today's ADP terms, wide receiver 11 off the board is Ladd McConkey. Wide receiver 20 or running back 21 off the board is Trevion Henderson. Imagine if they were going back-to-back in ADP. Ladd McConkey goes in the mid-2nd round on Underdog. Trevion Henderson goes in the 6th round on Underdog. So that's why this dynamic has changed so much. The dead zone in home leagues used to be around 4 to 7 because people were chasing these projections up the board who were like below average starting running backs, sometimes not even starting running backs, committee running backs. It's no surprise that the running back dead zone has been, well, surprisingly alive lately, because the running back projections that are going that late not only don't have to be as good because they're going off the board so much later, but they're also just higher ranked running backs among the position. You could see that in 2023 and 2024, 50% of running backs hit out of the dead zone and 57% of running backs hit out of the dead zone last year. And while there's still a lot of running backs going in the dead zone, like I said, it's different when running back 15 through running back 29 is going in the dead zone as opposed to running back 28 through running back 42 going in the dead zone. It's a massive difference in ADP texture that you're getting there. And you could see conversely, the wide receiver position actually hit at a lower rate for the first time since 2015 out of the dead zone than the running back position did, due in part to people chasing up wide receiver projections up the board that maybe shouldn't be going that high. It has outright smashed in 2 straight years because of the discounts that we saw out of the dead zone for the first time since 2015. Like I said, the running backs actually hit at a higher rate in rounds 4 to 7 than the wide receivers did. And it isn't just pure hit rates too. You can see the biggest 6 hits from the dead zone, highest win rate players, above 12% win rate players. 4 of them were running backs: Josh Jacobs, James Cook, David Montgomery, and Joe Mixon last year, whereas Terry McLaurin and T. Higgins, the highest win rate wide receivers to come out of this territory of the draft. Before, it used to be so skewed. Best picks on the board were always wide receivers in the dead zone, and now it is, I mean, it actually flipped, but it's usually at least balanced itself out.
Exactly. And you kind of mentioned this. I actually do have the data for you. So in terms of running backs that were going in the top 50 of ADP, between 2015 to 2022, there were only 2 separate instances of less than 20 running backs going in the top 50 picks. In the last 2 years, there were 17 going in 2023 in the top 50 picks. There were only 14 running backs going in the top 50 ADP last year.
Yeah, no, like you guys can see the charts on the screen right now. Like if you are getting running back 15 off the board, he is probably one of the better running backs in the NFL. Just from a talent perspective, he's probably in a good offense. Like just think about the projections that you're getting there. It's the reason that 0 RB was so effective is because you were chasing RB 28 off the board. And that's not the case anymore. You are now chasing off the board guys who actually project well.
And I know this is a super simplified way of saying it, but I mean, you'll hear, some of your league mates maybe in the past think, well, while you guys are all zigging, I'm going to zag. Well, the 0 running back draft strategy was quite literally zigging while your league mates were zagging, because everybody, like I said, was focused on drafting running backs that you were taking the value at wide receiver. But the more and more people that are going to catch on, oh, running backs are overvalued. Oh, we need to be selective with who you're drafting. Oh, I'm willing to do a 0 running back draft in my home league. The more and more that sentiment is a common sentiment in your league, the less and less viable 0 running back is actually. Because quite frankly, I mean, we don't want holes to be in our team. We only are willing to accept those holes when we get a surplus of value at another spot, which is what 0 running back was bringing your teams in yesteryears. When the running backs are just not going as high as they once used to, it's not as viable of a strategy.
Yeah, and to illustrate this point further, in 2020, 5 years ago, the ADP of the top 36, the first 3 rounds of ADP, was 21 running backs, 11 wide receivers, not even 12, 11 wide receivers, 2 quarterbacks, and 2 tight ends. If we took the exact order in which RB1, RB2, RB3, RB4, wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2, etc., went off the board in that top 36, this is what the ADP would have looked like with the exact players in this year's ADP in those positions. You can see that, for example, Malik Neighbors, who goes at the end of the first round, 8th, 9th overall pick on Underdog, would have been the 19th pick by 2020 rules. You could see that Brian Thomas Jr., Drake London, AJ Brown, early 2nd round assets going around the mid 3rd round of fantasy football drafts. And conversely with the running back position, a guy like Bucky Irving, Josh Jacobs, Chase Brown, who are routinely available at the 2-3 turn, sometimes into the 3rd round, would have been borderline 1st round picks in 2020.
Based off this ADP, there is a 1 spot discrepancy between the current 4th overall ADP player and 34th overall ADP player.
Yeah, no, it's insane. And you think of like looking at the back end of this too. Like look at the running back profiles that get pushed up the board. Guys like Alvin Kamara, Chuba Hubbard, James Conner, RJ Harvey, and Trevion Henderson, who are dead zone running backs now. They're 4th, 5th, 6th round picks now. And they were going by this rule of ADP in terms of the running back number that they are in ADP off the board. They were going in the 3rd round.
Bush, just look at it from 2020 alone. There were real people out there drafting Kenyon Drake over Tyreek Hill on the Chiefs.
Yeah, prime Tyreek Hill, future Hall of Famer Tyreek Hill. People took Kenyon Drake after a 5-game sample size, the final couple games of that 2019 season where he had a couple of good games at the end of the year. This is why zero RB became popular. This is why people said, yeah, it's super effective to run zero RB because you were getting excellent wide receiver projections. Can you imagine in the year 2025 starting your draft with Jamar Chase at the 105, in the second round grabbing Malik Neighbors, and in the third round grabbing Brian Thomas Jr.?
Bro, it's remarkable. You know, what was it at the time? A 26-year-old Tyreek Hill, 2 years removed from a 50-touchdown quarterback performance from Patrick Mahomes, and people were thinking, I'm going to actually take Kenyon Drake over that.
Yeah, not even a first-round pick, Tyreek Hill, that year. Like, ADP is so much sharper, and it's due to sites like Underdog and some of the tournaments that they have going. You guys might be thinking right now that we're overcorrecting. We're like, hey, it was a 1-year sample. Don't overreact to it. But you would be wrong about that because the market not only isn't overcorrecting and pushing running backs back up the board again, and 20, 25 running backs are going in the top 50. I would argue that the market hasn't corrected enough because only 16 running backs are going in the top 50 picks, top 4 rounds of ADP right now. And it's leached into home leagues, guys. It's not just Underdog. 18 running backs are going in the top 50 picks of multi-site ADP. And per Ryan Heath, only 15 running backs on ESPN are going in the top 40 picks of ADP. So it's not just sharp formats that this is leached into. Maybe it's because of people like us talking about zero RB and people in their home leagues trying to execute them. But for the most part, the market, as in fantasy players, have gotten way smarter and not pushing running backs up the board.
Yeah, and in terms of the viewer watching at home, you're saying, well, zero running back isn't an optimal draft strategy anymore. It's not that it isn't an optimal draft. I would agree optimal is probably not the right word for it. I still think it can be an effective draft strategy. We just have to understand how to adjust the strategy going forward into 2025. We explained how the old strategy kind of was. For the new version of a zero running back draft strategy, I still think it tailors to being selective and filling your other positions first. But back then, it was like the biggest no-no for a zero running back draft was, well, we can't draft Mike Davis in round 5. We can't catch up at running back with Mike Davis in round 5. Yeah, when it's Mike Davis in round 5, don't draft Mike Davis in round 5. When it's Trevion Henderson available in round 5, that's a little bit of a different story. At the end of the day, like I said, the key word, if you guys are watching at home, comment down below in the comment section right now if you've made it this far in the video, selective. We want to be selective at running back in this range, and there are actually really good profiles now. Back then when we were being selective, we were just saying, bad profile, bad profile, bad profile. There was no running backs we actually wanted to take. Not that there are actual good profiles in this range. We just need to be selective on which ones we take.
Yeah, you're basically tailoring your zero RB to your league tendencies and your league strategy. If your league is a start 7 ESPN PPR league with your friends, then you using a new school zero RB probably just means that you don't take a running back until you're being selective with one inside the old dead zone in round 5, round 6. Maybe you do grab 2 wide receivers to start your draft. Maybe you do grab an elite quarterback in the 3rd round, a third wide receiver in the 4th round, and an elite tight end in the 5th round. And you don't draft your first running back until round 6. But the adjustment now is that we're going to take the good profiles in the dead zone. We are not going to shy away from the dead zone because, like I said, dead zone had a 50% to 57% hit rate the last 2 years because, number one, the guys that are going there are not prototypical dead zone profiles. And number two, the guys that are going in the dead zone no longer have to crush to be effective because a 6th round running back has 15 fantasy points per game. That's just fine. A 2nd round running back with 15 fantasy points per game, not just fine.
Because you also have to think of it from both perspectives. Not only were you getting a worse running back in the dead zone, you were doing it over a better wide receiver projection. So if you're thinking about it right now, we showed the chart from the old ADP, but even if we extended it to the dead zone, taking wide receiver 14 off the board nowadays is going to cost you a 2-3 turn pick. Taking wide receiver 14 off the board back when Mike Davis was going in round 5 might have cost you a round 6 pick.
Yeah, no, it's all just about the positions harmonizing each other and the dead zone profiles specifically getting so much better. Because before it was like, if you didn't get your running back before round 2 or 3, you were completely screwed at the position because you had to take Mike Davis. You had to take Miles Sanders when he signed to Carolina. You had to take these guys that were just suboptimal projections. Whereas now, good dead zone profiles, starters for great offenses, guys with high pass catching upside in PPR leagues, rookie upside swings, like you made mention to Trevion Henderson, especially if they are pass catching running backs and also play for good teams as well. Whereas the bad dead zone profiles are like Mike Davis types who are not very good, committee running backs who have volume concerns, guys who are coming off of major injuries used to go in the dead zone as well, which no longer really happens anymore. And then you also have like bad offenses, older, washed up running backs, especially if they have like a young running back behind them on the depth chart. Like a guy like Tony Pollard right now, who goes in like the 8th round, would have went in round 3 or 4 in 2020.
Well, that's the thing. Like, if you're thinking about, oh, well, who's like the Mike Davis of this year, like a Tony Pollard profile is better than what Mike Davis was in that year, and he's going 3 rounds cheaper. And even at that cost, it's like, oh, do we really want to take him there? Like, there are better bets in that range.
Yeah, exactly. Like I said at the beginning of the video, 0 RB is a break glass in case of emergency strategy. And right now, those emergencies are happening a lot less often than they used to, where you didn't need to use 0 RB because your league mates are no longer chasing bad running backs up the board, or at least the league mates that you and I play with. A lot of you guys in the comment section have indicated that you play with. But the principles that do still apply for 0 RB is that, yes, running backs do get injured more than wide receivers. Even though last year, the average games missed to the top 20 wide receivers was 2.7, the average games missed to the top 20 running backs was 2.25. That was the first time that wide receivers in the top 20 of ADP ever missed more games than the running back position, basically in the same range. And again, that's an outlier. We don't want to overreact to that. But running backs do bust a little bit more in the early rounds as well, because we do still tend to chase up volume bets. 21% of the top 36 drafted wide receivers bust of the top 36. So we're talking guys that are going 4th, 5th, 6th round down the board, whereas 20% of the top 20 running backs in ADP bust. Once you go to the top 36 running backs, those bust rates are going to happen a lot more often. So again, generally speaking, we want to be selective. We don't want to overinvest in running backs, especially if they have bad profiles. But the cheaper a running back goes, the less dominant he has to be.
Yeah, and I think the reason we are seeing this sentiment, obviously, I mean, people are watching us, people are watching Ron, people are watching a lot of content in terms of being selective about running backs. The principle that running backs are a lot easier to replace via waivers in your league because, as we know, running back position as a whole is more of an opportunity-based position rather than a talent one. Obviously, there's elite talents in the league, but there are so many running backs. If you can give them 20 touches in a week based on opportunity, they should be able to give you a running back 2 or better numbers. Malik Neighbors got hurt, if Puka Nacua got hurt, if Nico Collins got hurt, CeeDee Lamb, Jamar Chase, all these elite wide receivers, it's not like we can just plug wide receiver 2 on the depth chart and just say, hey, listen, I know you've only been an 18 to 21% target share player. Now you got to handle a 30% workload. Like, that's not how it works. Receivers earn their volume based on their talent. Whereas running backs, if you are healthy and you are capable of running between the tackles, especially given the lack of a skill gap between the position comparatively to a wide receiver, you should be able to produce.
Yeah, if Mike Evans went down with an injury, and Bijan Robinson went down with an injury, who's going to be the better waiver pickup, Tyler Algier or Jalen McMillan?
Tyler Algier.
Exactly. That's basically why the running back position is still somewhat of a position we don't want to be overinvested in. And again, conversely, if you guys, for whatever reason, still play in leagues where people are going to take running back 20 off the board before the end of the 2nd round, then yes, this 0 RB as it used to stand would still apply to you. And again, league settings are going to matter a lot too. If you guys are in a league that's a 2 quarterback league or 2 running back, 3 wide receiver, 1 tight end, 2 flex, full PPR, tight end premium, well, then 0 RB is actually going to be still pretty effective because the more starting spots that you're going to have, the less of your lineup percentage-wise that running backs make up, the better 0 RB is going to be.
And that is the big key, because when you have 10 starting lineup spots and you can only fill, or not you can only fill, but you only have to fill 2 running back spots on a week, because obviously your flex can be a wide receiver or tight end. Your wide receiver is going to fill in your wide receiver spots, tight end in the tight end spot, obviously quarterback in the quarterback spot. If only 2 of your 10 starting spots have to be a running back each week, that's only 20% of your lineup. On the inverse, though, if you're in a shallow league, start 7, half PPR, 2 wide receivers, 1 flex. Well, running backs now, instead of making 20% of your league, now it's 2 out of 7, which, I mean, doing the math 28%. Off my head, 28%. I was going to say just about 30%.
Yeah, and in a half PPR standard formats, you're actually probably better off flexing a running back than you are a wide receiver. And now we're talking about a 45% of your lineup too. So that's why running backs matter a lot more in those formats. So if you're listening to this out there, it's probably downright unusable to run a 0 RB in those formats.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Like, in this type of format, if you are in a shallow league, if you are in a half PPR, it's like, just grab a running back. And again, we will show you guys examples. We're going to do a full mock based off a 2 wide receiver, 2 flex setup. but we'll also give you guys the insight if you are in a half PPR shallow lineup. We'll post a screenshot at the end for how maybe a zero running back might be conducted in that league.
Let's pivot over to the mock draft, and we will be using our brand new Flock Fantasy mock draft simulator for it. All right, so you guys can see our mock draft simulator over on Flock. And quick plug, you guys can see you can sign up using promo code FSE, 30% off plus a free team review if you guys sign up annually. But this is actually a free tool. If you could be a site subscriber with a different code, you could have not subscribed or whatever. You can do any kind of drafts here. You can do the mock draft lobbies here where you go in just like ESPN and Yahoo, except people actually take them seriously. Otherwise, their accounts get limited. Private drafts you can send to your friends, draft simulations where you can draft against our rankings, expert rankings, my specific rankings, so on and so forth. And of course, we have dynasty drafts as well. We are going to be doing a private draft, the two of us, so that we are drafting basically against our own rankings and the other experts on the site to give you guys as realistic of a team build as you can possibly get. Because if we did this on ESPN,
it's going to be a lot sharper.
Sleeper, whatever, our teams are going to look so much better than they probably actually would turn out to be.
And that's the thing, like having it ranked with our own rankings on that site. Like it's not just, oh, sleeper, hey, the second quarterback goes off the board in round 7 to a team. Like I've seen multiple examples of weird ADP there.
Yeah, for sure. So we're going to make this a redraft, full PPR, 12 team, 1 quarterback, 2 running back, 2 wide receiver, 2 flex. And we're going to go for 14 rounds, and we'll show you guys basically who has the better team at the end of it. All right, so we're now into the draft. Danny's going to be picking from the 1 hole. I'm going to be picking from the 10 slot, and we'll show you guys what it looks like to draft these like 0 RB teams. And again, we're showing off the mock draft simulator here. You guys can see that if you hit the sort button, you can actually sort by our specific rankings. This is a site subscribers feature only. If you are a free user, you can only see the expert rankings, but I'm going to sort by my own rankings, obviously, because that's who I'm drafting based on. And you can see we also have bots in the mock draft simulator based on other analysts on the site. Some of them are FSE bot, like me and Danny's combined rankings. But Danny, you're on the clock. I'll let you go ahead.
Yeah, and if you sort by my rankings, you can also see that we both have Jamar Chase as our 101. So I will take him here.
All right, so now I'm on the clock here. And again, for the purposes of this video, we're purposely trying to execute a 0 RB. Normally, you don't want to just do that. You probably want to wait and see what falls to you. And if you happen to run a 0 RB, then all the more power to you. But in this situation, I do have my best player available being a wide receiver in Malik Neighbors. So I'm going to grab Malik Neighbors here. And hopefully one of my top receivers can fall back to me. Again, it would have been nice if it was BTJ or St. Brown. That would have exemplified my point a little bit more. But I am totally cool grabbing Drake London here to continue kind of my light on running back start. Again, the reason I would do something like that, let's say I'm not high on Derrick Henry, for example. And I'm like, I like Drake London over Derrick Henry. And that's why I'm going to go in that direction.
Yeah, so now I'm back on the clock here, and we do see 10 running backs go off the board. So probably more indicative, like I said, of when you would want to do a 0 running back, because there could be the scenario where maybe Jonathan Taylor, Chase Brown, Josh Jacobs had fallen to this turn. They all go off the board. So instead of taking the next running back off the board, I will instead go to the wide receiver position. So my next player, I mean, I could just keep the theme of Cincinnati Bengals here, trusting a good offense. T. Higgins is my next highest rated wide receiver. So he'll be my pick here. And to really set the point home that I want to be dominating not only at wide receiver, but across the board outside of the running back position, I will grab my quarterback 1 in fantasy here with Josh Allen. I could have made the case if Bowers and McBride fell there to go with the other onesie, but because those both go off the board, I will be grabbing Josh Allen.
Yeah, no, exactly. And you can see specifically what the team format is right below my face here in terms of the starting lineup. And yeah, we'll go back to the position and see what's the best available player for me. Again, we're purposely trying to execute a 0 RB here. I do love me some Garrett Wilson. He is actually my highest ranked player on the board. And I do feel like I can get a quarterback or a tight end on my way back here, whether it's Jalen Hurts, George Kittle, Jaden Daniels, something like that. So again, it's a 2 wide receiver, 2 flex, full PPR. So I really want to be winning those wide receiver and flex spots. So I grabbed me some Garrett Wilson. Unfortunately, Jaden Daniels and George Kittle both go to me or go off the board, but I'm totally fine grabbing Jalen Hurts with my next pick here. Or I could even, if I wanted to, I could grab Terry McLaurin, who's my highest rated wide receiver, and really dominate those wide receiver and flex spots if I wanted to. But I do feel like there's a drop off after Jalen Hurts at quarterback, so I'm going to grab him. I feel like I can get a better receiver or a similarly valued receiver to Terry McLaurin with my next pick if I need to.
Damn. And of course, the FSC bot sniping me on Travis Hunter potentially making it back. That just kind of goes to show you how realistic the bots are set up right now. But you mentioned it. If I go by my own spot, this is very close here. I will take George Pickens with one of these picks. And I'm between McLaurin and Devontae Smith. You mentioned McLaurin earlier. I know obviously the holdout right now is potentially a concern for people, but for the purpose of a mock draft, let's just assume he is back on the Commanders. He's ready to catch passes from Jaden Daniels on a new deal. So I'll grab Terry McLaurin here.
Yeah, no, for sure. And again, we're purposely doing this as a way of kind of showcasing. We're going light at running back. We're taking our best players available for the most part, which are not running backs. And then you're going to obviously execute the old school 0 RB where you're basically not taking a running back until after the old dead zone, quote unquote. Yep. Whereas I'm going to be a little bit more flexible in terms of, hey, James Conner's on the board right now. He's my second highest rated player on the board right now, just behind Zay Flowers. I don't really love the tight ends available at the moment. I could grab a tight end later. I think I'm probably going to grab James Conner here. And this is kind of like my modified 0 RB. Again, I wouldn't call this a hero RB because traditionally you want your hero to come from the first couple of rounds. And we'll do a whole strategy video on hero RB draft strategy coming out later this week. But I'm basically grabbing like a modified 0 here where I'm getting one stab at the running back position, a guy who I think projects pretty well on a top 10 projected implied point total offense, been a multi-time RB1 and hasn't fallen off from a talent standpoint yet.
Also, it kind of goes to show you with some of the, Josh Downs going in the 5th, Isaiah Pacheco going in the 5th, like some ADPs, like this is how you get out of your comfort zone. Because maybe you're used to just going on sleeper or getting all these players falling at extreme values. Well, this mock draft simulator is kind of showing you right now, like maybe I'm banking on Travis Hunter falling to the 4-5 turn. He goes at the 4-4. I'm banking on Isaiah Pacheco. If I'm you, maybe slipping back to my pick. He goes the very next pick off the board. It kind of showcases to you that when curveballs are thrown your way in your own draft, you have to be able to adapt.
Yeah, and this is a good time to mention Underdog too, because Underdog, you're not going to get God Squad teams every time you draft them because it's sharp ADP, it's sharp drafters, it's real money contests. You guys probably have done mock drafts on ESPN, Yahoo, Sleeper, where you get a Mecca Ibuka in the 13th round or something like that. Like that's not going to happen on this mock draft simulator. This is proper practice for your home leagues. And again, if you practice against good expert values, good, these bots are set up to draft like pretty intuitively, then you're not going to be drafting, the most, elite teams of all time. And you're going to be properly prepared if your home league turns out to be a little bit more sharp than you thought.
Yeah, for sure. Also, shout out Mason. The bot's really taking what he did in the Flock League to heart. I'll go DeAndre Swift here. Again, we're kind of out of the traditional dead zone at this point. We're finishing up the 7th round. Like I said, DeAndre Swift, a guy that we like the offense there with Chicago, a guy that probably would be a 4th round pick if this was 2020. So don't mind taking my first there at that point. 6-12 feels reasonable. And to keep the theme of being strong at the onesies, again, I'm already kind of filled out at wide receiver 2 flex league. I don't mind going Sam Laporta here. I'm off of Sam Laporta when he's more so, a 5th round pick, but 701 feels like a reasonable spot for him.
Yeah, and again, if you were running the traditional, I'm never going into the running back dead zone ever again to grab a running back, then you probably pass on DeAndre Swift and take a bench receiver like Jaden Reed or something like that. But again, I think that's different when before the 5th receiver that you would draft as like the first guy off the bench for you projected as like a wide receiver 2. That's how it used to be. And you were drafting a running back, not like DeAndre Swift, who plays for a potentially really good offense, who's a multi-time RB2 with an RB1 season under his belt. You were drafting you would have been deciding there between like Zach Charbonnet and Jaden Reed or something like that. And that's not what we're dealing with anymore. So I'm on the clock again. I don't have a tight end at the moment. I do actually kind of like Travis Kelce at this point. But the other guy there doesn't. The Danny bot probably won't take Travis Kelce because I know you don't have him ranked very high.
That's knowing your league mate. That's knowing your
league mate right there. So I'm going to grab another wide receiver off the bench, more of an upside swing for me. I'll take Matthew Golden, who's a rookie receiver. I think he could have a breakout season. Yes, I was in fact correct knowing my league mate that Danny would not take Travis Kelce because he's the Danny bot, and also the FSE bot would also have some input on Danny's rankings as well. So I grabbed Travis Kelce as my onesie positional advantage there. And again, 0 RB, what is the point? The point is to win the other positions. Malik Neighbors, Drake London, Garrett Wilson, Jameson Williams help me win those wide receiver and flex spots. Jalen Hurts and Travis Kelce win those onesies. And again, I deviate into the dead zone for a James Conner to grab myself one stab at the running back position in the modified 2025 version of the 0 RB.
For sure. Now I am back on the clock here. We got the 8-12-901 turn. And this is where I'm going to start filling out at running back. I feel good at my wide receivers. I got the quarterback one in fantasy in my rankings. I got a top 4 tight end in my rankings. So I feel confident about my overall nest of my team to the point where now I can start firing away at that running back spot. I got one of them with DeAndre Swift. I'm going to add another one with Travis Etienne. And where do I go with this other pick? A guy that, again, I'm not the highest on per se, but I do think there's been positive buzz coming out of camp today. There is apparently a report that he could potentially see maybe not 50-50 work, but potentially more work than we could have expected maybe even a month ago. We are seeing some positive Jordan Mason, and I do think that profile is one you want to target because if Aaron Jones were to go down, it's no denying that Jordan Mason in that Vikings offense could potentially be a top 5 to 10 running back in fantasy.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And again, when you're running a 0 RB, sometimes at this point in the draft, you're kind of just looking for, okay, I need guys to get me by early in the season. While I don't love the projection for Javonte Williams, I don't have an RB2 right now. And Javonte Williams, at least at the beginning of the season, somewhat projects for a pretty good workload. And I feel pretty confident with some of my other picks that I can really take swings on some upside guys. So I'll take Javonte Williams. He'll be like my week 1 to 4 RB2 probably, because I can't imagine he's going to hold down his job very long. But now I'm at a point where I can really start to swing on upside. And for me, I see some of my highest drafted or my highest rated running backs, Zach Charbonnet, J.K. Dobbins, Byshell Tootin, who's dealing with a hamstring injury, so I might move him down a little bit. I'll roll with J.K. Dobbins. I think he has a really good chance of potentially winning out the Denver Broncos starting backfield. And again, one thing that we didn't actually mention at the beginning of this video was 0 RB. One thing that you're doing, and one of the premises that you're leaning into, is taking a lot of them in the late rounds, knowing that sometimes you do hit on a Tyrone Tracy, you do hit on a Bucky Irving, you do hit on Kareem Hunt from last year, who takes over for an injured guy and becomes a usable RB2.
Think of it like this, where you draft your team based off equatable value to your league mates with a clear hole in mind, but you're taking dart throws to potentially fill that hole. Because, I mean, for example, Isaac Guerrero is one of my top ranked running backs. Rashad White, Ray Davis, Tajay Spears, like all these guys, if the starter ahead of them were to go down, you're having surplus value over your league mates because now they become RB2 potential projections. So, all on the board here, I'm going to go probably with a running back with one of these picks. And there's just a wide receiver that I simply can't pass up. And because I only have 4, I feel like I can take another wide receiver with this build. So I'll go with the wide receiver first, Kyle Williams. Really like what I've been seeing out of training camp. I do think there's the potential opportunity for him to be the wide receiver 2 there. And for him being my 5th wide receiver, I don't have to throw in my lineup right away. I can kind of take him as a stash. And if he does end up being great, maybe he's somebody I can attach along with a running back to potentially upgrade my running back spot later on.
Yeah, that's the other thing with 0 RB too. Just because you draft 0 RB doesn't mean you never invest in the running back position. You could also trade for a running back once you have more information on who's good and who's not good and that kind of thing. Because if you think about it, Danny, how big of an advantage would it be over your league mates if you just hit on a bunch of wide receiver, quarterback, and tight end values in your draft? And then come week 2, week 3, when you know who's getting the workload, when you know who's playing at a high level, when you know what offenses are breaking out, you can go trade for a running back at that point in time.
Yeah. And on top of that, you have your fab budget to be able to add depth. So maybe like we always talk about 2-for-1s, especially if somebody like, I don't know, I mean, last year in the Flock League was the prime example, the Puka Nacua injury. You feel like you need to make a move to potentially patch some of the production in the short term. People are maybe willing to accept 90 cents on the dollars deals if a player on their team were to get hurt for a sustained period.
Yeah, no, for sure. So I'm grabbing James Conner was my RB1. Like I said, Javonte Williams, kind of that early season guy that I can rely on. J.K. Dobbins, more of a upside swing. Him and RJ Harvey. Maybe he's an early season guy too. It wouldn't shock me if Dobbins started out the season pretty strong. So I grab a rookie in Byshell Tootin, who I don't imagine I'll have a great productive workload out of at the beginning of the season. You see Tank Bigsby also listed there, getting a lot of hype in training camp as well. I could grab Tank Bigsby here too and just be like, hey, I feel like I'm going to get one of the top running backs for the Jaguars, and I'll see kind of how things play out. Drop the guy who's not getting the work, use the guy who is getting the work. But I do want to kind of I don't want to consolidate my bets too hard at the end of the draft here. I'll take another swing on a different backfield and stash up Tyler Algier here in case Bijan were to go down, because the other premise of 0 RB2 is that you're going to win the other positions. If you somehow hit on Tyler Algier being the starting running back for the Falcons because Bijan goes down in week 3 or something like that, well, then all of a sudden you got an RB1 for the price tag of, $12.03. And now you're really going to make up ground on your league mates.
Similar sentiment for me for a guy like Dylan Sampson. There are reports potentially with Quinton Judkins, a lot of unclear what's going to be happening at this point. So I do think 12-12, even if Judkins is on the field, I think is a reasonable cost for him because Sampson, again, I had a top 5 running back grade on. On top of that, if the upside that Quinton Judkins were to get suspended at all, I do think he could actually beat out Jerome Ford and be the one there. So grab Sampson here, 12-12, feel good about that. Going with my other pick. So I currently have 1, 2, 3, 5 running backs. Probably want a 6th on this roster and potentially add a wide receiver with the last pick. Between a couple guys, I don't mind Rico Dowdle, don't mind Jarvis Hunter. I mean, you went with Javonte Williams, so I think it's only theme if I go with the other Cowboys running back here with Miles Sanders. 1301, I think is reasonable, especially if you can get an immediate workload.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm also like the other thing to pay attention to is when you're running 0 RB, 5 of my first 7 picks are at wide receiver. So I'm not really over investing at wide receiver late in the draft because between those 5 players, I spent high draft capital to get them. So I'm assuming that I'm pretty much good at that position. I don't probably need to spend more picks later on at wide receiver. My hole is running back, and the more swings I can take on that. Like if you think about last year, maybe you swung on Braylon Allen, Bucky Irving, Tyrone Tracy, Tajay Spears, Tyler Algier, and some guy that didn't end up hitting. It's like, okay, you didn't hit on every single one of those last year, but you hit on a couple of them and you ended up figuring out your position. The more swings you take, more bites at the apple you get, the better your chances of being able to fill out your RB1 and 2 position consistently. One thing I am going to do, because Travis Kelce, while he's technically an elite tight end or one of the top tight ends, he's not like Brock Bowers or something. So I'm going to take another swing at the tight end position. I'm going to grab Isaiah Likely here, who I do think, based on all the reports we've heard, the Ravens are very high on him. Mark Andrews a little bit older, a little bit more injury prone. I do think that if Isaiah Likely were to be the starting tight end for the Ravens, I would actually probably be starting him in my starting lineup over Travis Kelce. So I'm totally comfortable swinging on Isaiah Likely, hold them for a couple of games. Maybe he doesn't turn into anything and I just drop him, churn the waiver wire at running back. Speaking of churning the waiver wire at running back, there's a couple of running back swings that I like here. Roshan Johnson, maybe he's going to be the goal line back for the Bears. We don't exactly know. Jalen Wright could have a role for the Dolphins, plus has a lot of handcuff upside if Achane were to go down. Devin Neal maybe has a role for the New Orleans Saints. I think the highest upside guy here is probably Jalen Wright, knowing that he was a pretty good prospect, top 3 running back for me in last year's draft. Plus, Devon Achane's a little bit on the undersized side, and I already have a couple guys early on in the year that I can feel comfortable rolling out there in my RB1 and my RB2 slots.
Yeah, and I'm back on the clock here. Final pick of the draft at the 14-12. The other factor, too, if I know my first 4 wide receiver picks are going to be staples in my lineup majority of weeks, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, George Pickens, Terry McLaurin, going to be staples in my lineup. That's why I structure my bench wide receivers purely based on upside. Kyle Williams, I think, is a big-time upside shot. And the other guy here, yeah, sure, based on the current status quo of the team that he is on, probably won't get a ton of snaps. But if I'm betting on him to be a player that I'm going to be putting into my lineup ahead of any of my other 4 wide receivers, I want the upside. So I will go with Jalen McMillan. Again, if Godwin were to get hurt, if Evans were to get hurt, if Egbuka were to get hurt, you're getting access to a high pass volume offense for a wide receiver who down the stretch was basically scoring a touchdown every week. So if I'm going to take a receiver at the 14-12, I'm not just going to take a boring wide receiver 4 that maybe can fill into my lineup for 1 week. No, I'm taking the wide receiver that if something happens in front of him has the implied upside to be an actual difference maker.
Well, yeah, like the bar is that he has to be able to start over Terry McLaurin based on your lineup. He was the 4th receiver that you took. So yeah, that's something to keep in mind. If you do go very wide receiver heavy or very, 0 RB type of teams, the wide receivers you should be taking, if you take any more at all, like I didn't take a single one after Matthew Golden, they need to be guys that can really get into your lineup. And another cool thing, obviously, about this feature in the mock draft simulator is that you do get a grade or, basically the My Team's feature kind of rates your draft. And Danny coming out on top here with Josh Allen, Jamar Chase carrying the way there. Obviously, some really high-end, difference-making assets at the quarterback and wide receiver position. You can also sort, if you are a site subscriber, by creator, so you can see exactly which creator likes your team more and that kind of thing. My team doesn't score as well. I don't have nearly as many positional advantages as Danny does, but I got 2 top 10 receivers. I got Jalen Hurts. I feel like it's a little bit harsh on me, to be honest, of how my team ended up turning out, but yeah, basically that was the 0 RB. We drafted 0 RB teams. We showed you how it can work in 2025. Again, I think there's more optimal strategies. Let's be perfectly transparent about that. I think that going double hero RB or even potentially hero wide receiver might be a more optimal strategy this year specifically because of the value that you're getting on the running back position, conversely to 2020 and 2021 and all that kind of stuff. But it is worth noting that if you execute it properly, maybe you deviate in the dead zone for a good profile, it could still work. It's not like it can't work. It's just something that you might be whipping out a little bit less often than you were 3 years ago.
Yeah, don't you guys worry. We'll be talking hero running back. We'll be talking double hero running back, hero wide receiver. We got you guys covered the entire week. So if you're thinking, well, is zero running back the only draft strategy I can run? Don't worry. Stay tuned this week. Have the subscriptions on and get some popcorn ready.
Absolutely. So appreciate you guys for joining us. Again, if you like the mock draft simulator, definitely check it out. If you want our draft guide, also available on flockfantasy.com. Use the promo code FSE, 30% off. Annual team review voucher for anybody who signs up for the annual Mother Flocker package. And we are dropping that season pass very, very soon. Stay tuned for that. Later this week, that should be live. Basically, you sign up, $35, gets you covered August 1 to Jan 1. If you're a redraft player, that will get you basically through the entire season, draft guides, season-long rankings, everything you guys could need to win your season-long leagues this year. Definitely check that out if you're interested. Like I said, that'll be live at the latest August 1st, but probably later this week as well. So definitely check that out if you're interested. And of course, if you guys are trying to get some drafts in, trying to get some practice in for your home league, head on over to Underdog Fantasy. Use the promo code FSE to sign up and get up to $1,000 in bonus cash on your first sign up. You'll also get a gimme pick in your pick'em lobby. Start drafting some teams, man. You can do $5 contests, $3 contests. If you have a higher budget for it, $25, $50, $75, $500 contests if you want to. Get some real money drafts in. It's no waivers, no trades, no in-season management. You just draft and collect your winnings at the end of the year. And it is the best way to sharpen up for your home league, because on Underdog, it's real money drafts, it's sharp players. You know exactly where players should be going, to the point that after you've done, let's say 20 Underdog drafts and you go into your home league draft, you're going to know that Tedero McMillan should not go in the 6th round. You're going to know that Trevion Henderson should not go in the 8th round. You're going to get those values based on practice and based on intuition. How do you get better at anything in life? You practice at it, and fantasy football is no different, and Underdog's the best place to go ahead and do that. So check that out if you're interested. Both of those will be linked down below in the pinned comment. But with that being said, peace out, and we'll talk to you soon.